The Miami Hurricanes are the next Florida school to host another massive weekend. And Mario Cristobal getting down to Miami, you know, we've talked about what he did at Oregon, potentially trying to turn around the U. Last cycle landed 2 5 stars. And this weekend, he hosted a plethora of 5 stars. And really, it's just some top rated talent across the board. But before we dive into it, guys, go ahead and hit that like and hit that subscribe button. Jump down in the comments below and let me know what y'all's thoughts are. What do you guys, as Miami fans, expect from Mario Cristobal going into the year of 2024 recruiting cycle? So, last cycle in 2023, we saw the Miami Hurricanes not land one, but two of the most coveted offensive tackles in the 2023 class. One in Samson Okunoalola, who I guess still don't get the joke, but was being tossed around with making pancakes. And then you saw Francis, and I'm going to butcher this last name. I think it's Mauigoa. But however you look at it, Miami was able to go in there and improve their offensive line to potentially help Tyler Van Dyke. And in a season where you expect that he needs to have a big year for Miami to take it to the next level. But here's the deal. Just looking outside of those 2 5 stars that they got in last year's class, they ultimately, I feel like, in my opinion, had a pretty good year. You got edge rusher Ruben Bain. You got Jaden Wayne. You also got Riley Williams, the 247 109th ranked player in the country and a 4-star tight end in the country. Up and down the board, they were able to kind of get some pieces that would kind of help get this program going in the right direction. But 2024 is a crucial year because you're looking at it as Mario Cristobal's second year. And a lot of the Miami fans, I expect, are expecting for Mario Cristobal to kind of have the similar success to what he was having at Oregon. Now, kind of looking at what he had this weekend on campus, it was no short of just but impressive. Started out with probably the headliner, 5-star edge rusher, 6'3", 225 pounds, the number 4 overall ranked player in the 247 composite rankings, Colin Simmons out of Duncanville, Texas. Now, you guys have heard me talk about it in other videos, but I think Colin Simmons is definitely going to be trending towards the LSU direction. It just seems like LSU has really been pushing for the entirety of the Duncanville athletes coming out here in 2024 and 2023. Or 2025. But they also got Ellis Robinson from IMG Academy that is currently committed to Georgia and the number 5 overall ranked player in the 247 composite on campus. Now, I don't think Miami is going to be flipping Ellis Robinson for sure of any time soon. I believe that work is going to be left up to Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. But for Miami to get the number 4 and the number 5 prospect on campus for this kind of recruiting weekend, that says a lot. But then you turn around and you see David Stone, the 5-star defensive lineman, who is the number 6 overall ranked player in the 247 composite rankings on campus. And you go, okay, so you got 4, you got 5, and you got 6. And with what Miami did last year, with the history that Miami has, you would expect that they could try to make a swing at one of those. And probably the most likely of those 3 is going to be David Stone. And I know a lot of Oklahoma fans that watch this show are definitely going to go, no, no, no. We're not going to let David Stone go to Miami. A kid that was originally from Oklahoma City but is playing at IMG Academy. Here's the deal. Todd Bates, Miguel Chavis, they have a great relationship with David Stone. But one thing that we know could get in the way with David Stone is potentially a bag if it is big enough, which, listen, we've heard the rumors. We've heard that Miami might or might not toss around bags. Leave it up to you guys to come up with those conclusions. But if something like that was to arise for David Stone, because we're talking about an elite defensive lineman, so somebody that is worth probably closer to the highest tier of NIL money, Miami would be an attractive destination. You got Florida. You got, of course, the Miami streets, the Miami parties. Why would you not want to go to Miami? Coming off the official visit, a lot of people had David Stone trending to Miami because he took a visit there in April, he took a visit there in March, and he took a visit there in May. And because of that, there's been this belief and this feeling that maybe there's something there with Miami, where originally it was Michigan State was the team to cause Oklahoma problems in this recruitment. It might just now be the Miami Hurricanes. So when I'm looking at David Stone and I look at any other potential school that's not Oklahoma, I look at Miami and say, Miami could be the school that he goes to. And if Miami gets an elite defensive lineman, just like Oklahoma, I say it completely changes your recruiting class because heads will turn and people will ask questions. Why go there? Why go to a program that has struggled? Why would you want to go to a program where they're not having top tier success like the Georgias, the Alabamas, and those schools? So that'll be one we have to pay attention to and keep an eye on. But additional to David Stone, they also got the 5-star edge rusher in Dylan Stewart, who's the number 10 overall ranked player in the 247 composite. And they also got Aiden Breland from Modern Day. He's not a 5-star yet, but he's a borderline 5-star. He's a 5-star in the 247 rankings, but in the composite, he's the number 33 overall ranked player. So if you notice, the one thing that Miami really focused on this weekend was getting elite defensive linemen on campus. And I think that says something because they're building in the trenches, which is something we talk about on this channel so much. You have to be able to build in the trenches to be able to put forth a top tier program, especially when you've got a quarterback like Tyler Van Dyke, who's going to need protection up front. But also on the defensive side of the ball, you've got to be able to cause problems. You got to be able to wreak havoc. So outside of the potential 5-stars, they also got guys like LJ McCray from Dayton Beach, Florida, who just took a visit to the Florida Gators. And this one's interesting because it looks like it's going to come down between the 3 top-tier Florida schools: Florida, Florida State, and Miami. Currently, LJ McCray has an official visit set up to Florida State on October 7th. He has an official set up to Auburn on June 12th, and he has an official visit set up to Georgia on June 16th. He's already taken his to Florida and Miami. Here's the deal. Mike Norvell is getting the last visit. Now, it is pushed really far out, so we still have to get to the point where he's going to take that official visit because there might be a world where he commits and maybe that visit doesn't happen. And I think that's kind of what Miami would feel comfortable with. Let him take these visits in June. Let's not pressure him too much, but let's try to lock it down after he takes the officials to Auburn and Georgia. In an ideal world, you don't even want him to take those visits. But coming off a little pushy can become like an aggressive salesman. At that point, you start to have an icky feeling about going to that school. So giving the kid some space, letting him take these visits might be the right thing in the long run, but you definitely want to try to maybe fend off that October 7th Florida State visit, especially when Florida State could potentially be a top 10 program in the country at that time because, well, what Florida State's returning is just incredible. But Florida State also got a chance, or not Florida State, Miami also got another chance to get a former, I say former, because he's not a 5-star anymore, but he was a 5-star in the 247 composite rankings at one point, and Jarrett Gibson on campus. Now, a lot of people have Jarrett Gibson going to Texas, but in the thick of it, you have the Georgias of the world, you have the Miamis, and you have the Floridas. Now, what kind of impact did this weekend make on Jarrett Gibson? Only time is going to tell because Texas has got Tashard Choice and Kyle Flood on the job. And if I'm Kyle Flood, I'm pitching the idea that I'm going to have an experienced offensive line in front of you, and we're going to continue to bring in young guys that are only going to get experience so that you're not being blocked by an inexperienced offensive line. And I think that's kind of the same pitch that Kevin Smith and Miami have to give Jarrett Gibson. You have to be able to tell him, listen, we landed 2 5-star tackles in this last class, and we're only going to continue to build and grow and mold this offensive line to be able to provide the best protection for you. So we'll have to see how these next visits go for Jarrett Gibson. And if you're Texas, you're feeling good because you've got the last one on June 23rd. But Jarrett Gibson has now been to the University of Miami one more time than Texas. The only other school that you could potentially look at that might say, okay, that's going to be a problem, it's going to be the Florida Gators, where he's been 8 times. And we know Billy Napier is trying to do something special because we talked about that official visit weekend that they had last weekend, where they just had a completely star-studded official visitor list. But looking up and down at this list, I mean, he's tackling skill players. Again, we talked about it. Trenches. You had Braylon Stanley on, the 6', 175-pound wide receiver, the 182 ranked player in the 247 composite. You had Elijah Lofton, the tight end out of Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas, Nevada. You had TJ Lindsay out of IMG Academy. You had Cameron Pruitt, Keyshawn Flowers, Ty Hilton, Sion Luala. Here's the deal. Miami is now trying to continue to bring its brand just outside of the East Coast in the state of Florida. They're trying to do what USC is doing. In order to rebuild this brand and get this program back to where it is, you have to be able to go recruit nationally. You have to be able to go push this brand all over the country. And that's exactly what they're doing with all of these visitors that they got on campus. And it doesn't hurt when you've got a bunch of 5 stars on campus, because then it shows at least these guys have interest in your school and potentially gets the other 5 stars to potentially want to come there. Now, you look at some of the crystal balls that have recently been submitted for Miami. They're going to potentially shake up to have another top 10 class by the end of the cycle. The linebacker Vincent Shavers. They also received crystal balls for it's a 50-50 split for Justin Scott, the 5-star defensive lineman, currently that I think actually ends up at Ohio State, but looks like he's 50-50 favored to end up at Notre Dame or Miami. You've also got a crystal ball for Ricky Knight III, the 6', 168-pound athlete. You've also got a crystal ball in for the 3-star tight end at 6'5", 270 pounds, Corey Duff Jr. And then you've also got one in there for the 5-star Josiah Trader, the 6'1", 175-pound wide receiver. If you're Miami, you need to be able to get weapons around your quarterback. Now, that's a question that I have for Miami. What are you going to do at quarterback coming up here in the future? Because Tyler Van Dyke is not going to be around forever. And I know that you have Ja'Cory Brown, you have Emory Williams, you have Jaden George, and I'm definitely not going to try to butcher this other kid's name that you guys have. But I would like to see Miami potentially get another quarterback on campus and potentially get a top 10 quarterback. So out of the quarterbacks that are ranked, you want either 1 through 10. I think I would like to see Miami try to go out there and get one of those. Only time is going to be able to tell to show which one of those guys they are going to be able to get, because the quarterback's coming off the board. Not a lot out there at this current moment. So, guys, I want to hear from you. Go ahead, jump down in the comments below. Let me know what y'all's thoughts are about the massive recruiting weekend that Miami was able to put up. And do you think that Miami potentially lands any of these 5 stars that they had on campus?